So in the beginning, we had the USG. So I have here the USG version 1.0. It came out a couple years ago. Basically, it's supposed to stop this guy from being able to hack a computer. Now, this thumb drive right here is nothing special. It's just a crappy PNY thumb drive. Nothing special about it other than it sucks. It's a very, very crappy thumb drive. It costs like $5 at Walmart. But if I were to take this thumb drive apart, mess with the board, modify it to do whatever I want it to do. So this is the problem. I can plug this into anything, any computer I want. I could also plug this into any computer that I want to charge my phone. Lots of people, like lots and lots of people, just plug this into their computer, just charge their phone straight off of it. The cord itself could be exploited, the phone itself could be exploited. So that's where this guy comes in. SyncStop. So they actually, on the inside, remove the data pins out. So you can charge your phone just by plugging it into here, and then plugging it into your computer, and then plugging this into your phone. And your phone can still charge, but this is not going to actually connect to the computer. Again, very bad that people just plug their phones into their computers, because you don't know if that phone's compromised, and you don't know if that computer's compromised. So either your phone's getting completely pwned, or your computer's going to get completely pwned. You have no idea what's on that other device. So if you don't trust that device, don't plug your device into that device. That's common sense, but we have to have these things because people don't have common sense. So this one completely stops all data. This one, the USG, as mentioned before, has some special rules in it. So if I actually open this up, this is actually a modified version that I got a little while back. So it has, look, it's got bot detection as well, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But basically, mass storage, keyboard, mouse. It has two processors on the back. So one processor is for the inbound, and oh, I got that mixed up. One's for the outbound, and one's for the inbound. So the device plugs into here, like such. Boom, and then just pretend like the SyncStop's my computer. That plugs into there, and then that's the computer. So you got a big long thing sticking out of your computer. But what this does is anything coming from here goes to this processor. Anything coming from here goes to this processor. They can only communicate very, very specific commands to each other. So if this device is compromised, it's going to pwn this chip. Who cares? Because this chip can only communicate to this chip, which then communicates to the computer. So only certain things are allowed between this, and that would be, again, mass storage, keyboard, mouse. If it's not one of those three things, it's not supported. It can only be those three things, and it can only be one of those three things at one time. So if I try to, modify this device to be both flash storage or mass storage and a keyboard, or a keyboard and a mouse, or a mouse and mass storage, not possible. It's only going to allow one of those three in at one time. It also will only allow one of those in the first time you plug it in. So if I plug this in this mass storage, and then still mass storage, I flick a switch or a certain script runs and it wants to become a keyboard, it can't be. So this is basically a filter. And then the bot detection will actually be able to kind of tell if there's a device on the other end that's just kind of spitting out random commands. So a good example of this is a YubiKey. There's a YubiKey right here. If I plug in a YubiKey in here, like such, and I, have a static password on here, and I just want to spit out the static password real quick. It's gonna spit out a little bit, but then it's gonna be like, oh, nope, nope, too fast, too fast. And it's gonna recognize it as a bot, and it's gonna shut it down. And I've tested this a few times. So it successfully stops it almost every single time. This one right here is Flash with a custom firmware, where I check the read-only firmware, or I check the read-only option in the firmware, and then I compiled it and then flashed it to this. And that's another thing. When you do flash the software, you have to flash it to both chips, because they can't communicate. So this one cannot say, hey, you have to be updated as well. And this one can't say, hey, you need to be updated as well, because they can only communicate certain commands. So this one is Flash's read-only. So, awesome, awesome device. The only issue with this device is it is in USB 1 speeds, and that sucks because it's not fast USB 1. It's the slower end USB 1. So off of a device like this, or even a USB 3.0 SanDisk Ultra hub drive, 3.0, you can only get about a megabyte per second reading, and then writing much slower, like half that. So trying to transfer files to this, or even trying to work off this, work off a thumb drive that's plugged into this, painfully slow. Secure, but painfully slow. So, awesome, awesome, awesome device. Here's its big brother. This is called the Armadillo. So this just came out. So this fixes a few of those issues. So first and foremost, you'll notice there's a read-only button. Boop. So that's fantastic, because now I don't have to compile the firmware on this one and only use this one for read-only, and then have to switch this one when I want to be able to write to a mass storage device. I can just flick it, and then it's read-only. That is fantastic. And then flick it when I don't want read-only. Only works on boot, so when I do flick this switch, I'm going to have to unplug the Armadillo, plug it back in. And I'll show that a little bit in a second. But this solves that problem right then and there. Another thing, you have lights on this side, fault upstream, fault downstream, and then like little arrows to tell you which side goes to which. Before I get to the best part of this thing, is you have glue right here. This glue's got glitter in it. And the point of this is it's right above the screws. So the intention is, you can't get into this thing. Well, I mean, you can get into it by cutting into it, but then you risk breaking it and you risk leaving a trace. If you were to leave this in, say, a hotel room, and someone comes in and they want to modify the firmware on this, or they want to change something on the actual device, they'd have to get through this glue first. Now, if this glue is missing when you get back, you know it's been messed with. And it actually says on here, they recommend you photograph both ends of the case, because the glitter's in certain spots, and it's kind of just thrown on there. So you'll be able to tell if someone unscrewed it, got into the glitter, and then tried to put the glitter glue back on. So pretty unique concept. That's really cool, because no glitter pattern is going to be the same. Very solid too. You're not going to break this thing accidentally. You can probably sit it in your back pocket and be fine with it. Wouldn't be too worried about this. It is called an armadillo, so I'm guessing that means it's strong. Alright, so the best part about this, we now have USB 2.0 speeds. So now, we don't have to worry about the slow, aggravating speeds of this, where we can't work off of it, we can't run stuff off of it, we can't read and write to it very fast. I mean, you can barely save a Word document without having to wait. With this guy, the Armadillo, we have USB 2.0 speeds. Not quite, but it's better than this one, and I'll show you that in a second. And I've done a few tests so far. I'm gonna do a few tests for the video, for the Vine, but not much overhead. The speeds that you read and write to this guy right here, this crappy thumb drive, very, very comparable to when you run it through this thing. So that's great. We don't want much overhead because, you know, we want the authentic speeds of this device, because these speeds are pretty slow as is. We don't need it super slow. Also, I forgot to mention, this cord they actually give you, they actually zap it, 240 volts. They zap it to make sure it's bug free and make sure there's nothing inside this cable. Because if there was something living inside this cable, 240 volts is going to destroy the crap out of it. So you can rest assured this has nothing inside of it. So this side gets plugged in, micro USB, just like that. And then this end goes into the computer, like such. It should flash, let me see. Should flash, and you should have some green light. You have a green light over here. You can actually kind of see the green light over here. You have a green light on this side indicating that it is indeed on. If I had this in read-only mode, I'm going to have two green lights. One green light indicating that it's in read-only mode, and one light indicating that it is powered on. And you'll notice, if I turn that off, it's not going to turn off on boot. This switch is seen at boot. So turning it off right now is not going to do anything. You actually have to remove power, plug it back in, and then it's not in read-only mode. I guess we can start with a USB 3.0 drive. So you'll hear it successfully attached. I got a few Ubuntu ISOs in here. I'm going to just pull these over. Pull one over. See how fast we're going. So through a few tests that I've already done, I've concluded that the limit of this thing is about 20 megabytes per second. And this is both on Windows and on Linux. Alright, so yeah, about 20 megabytes per second. Once it copies over, I'll pull it back over, do the write test, and the write test is obviously going to be much slower. It's always slower to write than to read. Maybe not always, but in the case of this, it definitely is. Alright, so I have the file here. You just put like a -3 on the end, just that it has a different name so I can pull it over without overwriting anything, just for a clean test. Alright, so I'll pull her over, copy over, and we're at 13. It's probably going to drop off. Let's see. Oh, we might stay at 13. Yeah, we're staying around 13. That's actually much better than I hoped. So through many tests, I've seen the read speeds are about 20 megabytes per second, which isn't perfect, but it's not terrible. It's much better than the USG. I'll show you what the USG does in a second. And it dropped off there for a second. This is kind of what I was expecting, a little bit more, about 8 or 9 megabytes per second. Alright, so it finished copying over. We stayed at about 13 megabytes per second at the beginning. Then we dropped off to about 9 to about 8 ish megabytes per second. So that's pretty decent. That's very, very good. Like much better than the USG. Let's see what the USG does next. Oh, actually, I probably shouldn't plug it into that one. That one's the read-only one if we want to do write tests. Alright, so this one. You'll see how much, the USG pops out a lot. Like you have all of this. Whereas with this one, you have this cable. You can just sit it on top of your laptop like that. And it's more of a, like a dongle instead of sitting like that. I've always been scared I'm going to break one of these. You got to be very, very careful with them. Alright, so we have file now. I'll drag over number 2. And watch this. Very, very slow. So a massive improvement. 20 times improvement over the USG, the Armadillo. So through a lot of testing I've seen, 1 megabyte per second on the USG is about right. That's about where it stays the whole time. So if you're trying to read a bunch of files off this thing, or you're trying to copy stuff over, you're going to be waiting a long time. And I'm actually not going to wait on this. I'm actually just going to cancel this, because I'm going to be sitting here for 25 minutes. So cancel that. I'll rename this 4, so I can drag it over. So write speeds are much slower, as you can imagine. Write speeds kind of go up and down, but stay at about 700 to 800 kilobytes per second. So we're not even talking megabytes per second at this point, just kilobytes per second. So, very secure. We have 2 processors, nothing's getting through. Like, our data is safe on both ends. Well, our data's not safe, but our devices, our firmware is safe on both ends. But this is pretty hard to work off of. If you're trying to do, photo editing or video editing, or even, just working on a Word document, you're gonna notice a lag in saving and reading and writing. Like, it's gonna slow it down quite a lot. Mainly, I mean, the USG is good for being able to like recon what's on that thumb drive, and maybe take something off if you need to, or it works great with mice and keyboard. And then watch what happens if let me cancel this operation. Watch what happens when I try to plug this keyboard in. I try to plug this keyboard in after taking out this thumb drive. So I haven't unplugged it from my computer yet. It's still plugged in. And I plug in the keyboard. It's going to blink and blink and blink. And I'm not going to be able to do anything with this keyboard. The read-only version that I compiled myself, let's hope I compiled it correctly. I plug this in, like such. So I have these files right here. I should be able to just pull one off, like such. Yep. And then I'll get my megabyte per second. I'll go ahead and cancel that, because you see it's copying over. If I try to pull this over to here, it shouldn't do anything. And you'll see I have no right click new either. Oh, there it goes. This disk, or the disk, is write protected, remove the write protection, or use another disk. So it doesn't know, the computer itself doesn't know what's going on. It's just like, it's trying to write to the device. The device is not being written to, and the computer is just freaking out, going, hey, we don't know what's going on. So skip that. And then it'll pretend like it's writing to it, but it's not. Yeah, because there's no -4 in here. It just completed the operation. Again, no new thing in here. I could try to give access to it in advanced sharing settings or whatever, but it's not going to work. Cannot write to this device because it is blocked in firmware. So that's that. And I mean, the Armadillo, again, major improvement. Actually, I gotta flick the switch first. Just one switch on the back. Plugs it in, give her green light, plug her in. I have no new option. Try to drag her over. Says it's write protected. Drag a file over. It'll copy successfully. So, excellent. One switch to turn off that write protection. I just unplug her, flick the switch, plug it back in. No green light for write protection. I can just drag that back over, and boom, I've written to it. Easy. Very easy for people who have no idea how to compile firmware and put it on themselves. I mean, you could always buy a read-only version, but here's the issue. Now you have two, and then, I mean, this one's got a yellow sticker on it, so that's how I differentiate. And this one has a yellow sticker because it's also got bot detection in it. We'll talk about that in a second. But then you have two, and you're gonna have to carry both, and you're gonna have to figure out, you know, which one's which. Or with this, I just flick a switch and it works. So, something else. The YubiKey can spit out one-time passwords. Very simply. So if let me just do this. If I plug this guy in, and let me open up Notepad. If I hold down on it, it'll spit out a password very easily. I can do that over and over again. There we go. Spits out a password. Now, if I use the USG, I use the read-only one. Oh! Actually, when I turned read-only mode on, I actually disabled mice and keyboard as well. So that's something else that you could do in the firmware if you compiled it yourself. So mice and keyboard don't work automatically, which is kind of cool. You can only allow mass storage devices, and you can only allow them as read-only. So you literally have no fears. This could literally just be your I'm plugging in sketchy flash drives USG. So this one's got bot detection on it. So when I hold down the button, it's going to try to spit it out, but then it gets to a certain point and it's like, yeah, no, you're not really allowed to do that. And then it'll start flashing red. I don't know if you could see that. It starts flashing red on the other side, indicating that it detected a bot. The only way to get out of there is to unplug her, plug her back in, and then try again. And then again, it's not gonna work. No bueno. So that's that one. The Armadillo has that built in as well. You don't have to have a special version either. It just comes with it. I haven't tried this yet, but I kind of want to see what happens with this. This is a USB rubber ducky. Let's see what happens when I plug this guy in. See if it actually does anything. Oh, it's actually letting it do some stuff. And you'll see, blinking red light. Double flash every second means it detected a bot. So if someone tries to plug in thumb drive like this, it's going to stop it a little bit, and then it's going to be like, okay, yeah, this is actually bad, and then it's going to shut down. Oh, okay, so it actually reset itself. So that was, I don't know, like 30 seconds. So let's try to plug her back in. She's recognized by the computer. Tries to go again. And it senses a bot once again, which is kind of cool. But yeah, this thing is awesome. Vast improvement to the USG. USG was fantastic, but slow, and that's that, and the inability to have read-only mode with a switch were my only complaints. Like, this thing is awesome now. If we could get USB 3.0 speeds in this, that'd be even better, but that's probably not going to be possible for a long time. So, Armadillo, very, 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 very cool. Very cool. Works flawlessly so far. I've been messing with it for a few days now, and it is excellent. These are manufactured in New Zealand. If you check out our blog post, we actually have a quote from the guy who makes them. And basically he manufactures everything in New Zealand. He has a very, very strict manufacturing process, and makes sure that stuff like this just shows. This glitter glue right here shows that he's very, very serious about keeping these things as secure as possible. So these just came out. You can find them on his. So yeah, these just came out. I believe I have one of the first demo units, and let me tell you, amazing. Go get yourself one. Check out our blog post. It's going to be linked below on all the benchmark tests that we did with the transfer speeds, and then the quote from the CEO explaining his manufacturing process. And then, feel free to leave a comment.